So you've talked about two systems overall, right? Two neuron
This part's
systems.
probably going to confuse you. 'Cause you're
Yes.
so behind.
It will confuse you at first. I think you'll start to catch up. We're talking about in the autonomic nervous system. Do you know what the ANS is? Autonomic nervous system? So think auto, things that you're not controlling. So
Oh yeah, we were talking about
So like
that.
somatic is things I control, my skeletal muscles. Autonomic, things I don't control. I'm not controlling when I digest my food and my pupil dilation and things like that, okay? So what are the two subcategories of the autonomic nervous system?
Sympathetic and parasympathetic.
So sympathetic and parasympathetic, okay? They both have different, they're two neuron systems from the spinal cord, okay? Whereas the somatic is one neuron from the spinal cord. What does it look like?
So sympathetic is short and then long.
Okay, so we have a short
Neuron.
pre-ganglionic neuron and then a long post-ganglionic neuron to the effector.
And then the
Okay.
parasympathetic has a long pre-ganglion, and then has a short post-ganglion.
I was just getting to the effector.
Is that all right so far? And I know you're gonna be slightly lost, but I think as you start going through, you'll start picking it up, and I do have to hurry because I spent a while on the other stuff. Okay. Pre and post ganglion. Which one's myelinated? The pre or post?
Pre.
The pre-ganglion is myelinated. That's important, okay?
I was
Myelinated, myelinated, non-myelinated, okay? Okay. You talked about, okay. Just thinking how I'm gonna explain it. Okay. What are the neurotransmitters at these different points?
acetylcholine,
ACH.
So acetylcholine,
And
so
And then-
ACH,
norepinephrine.
I just say the letters because the words are too hard for me.
I have to do the words so I know what they're talking about.
if you do the words, it actually helps in a lot of ways.
Really?
I'll, at very least for this guy, and I'll show you how in just a second. Okay, what about this guy?
Acetylcholine and acetylcholine for the other one.
Acetylcholine, acetylcholine. Okay, so we know that they're receptor types. Okay, we know that there are two big categories, right? What are the two category names?
Cholinergic.
Cholinergic and adrenergic receptors. Okay. Guess what acts on the cholinergic receptors? Choline, acetylcholine. That's why that guy's really good to remember because acetylcholine.
Acceleration from you?
Go for it.
Oh!
Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna have to keep going. Okay, we got acetylcholine acting on cholinergic receptor. Sorry, I'm just gonna have to keep moving, guys. So I can answer as many questions as I possibly can. Okay, cholinergic receptors, acetylcholine is gonna be acting on them. Okay, adrenergic. What does that sound like?
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline. Do you know what norepinephrine is, or otherwise epinephrine is?
It's adrenaline.
Epinephrine is adrenaline. Have you ever heard of an EpiPen?
Oh, yeah.
EpiPen used for allergies. Why? If they're having an allergic reaction, we want to dilate our bronchioles, right? Because they've been constricted, so I can't breathe. Use an EpiPen. It's going to pump adrenaline into my body, or epinephrine into my body, hence the EpiPen, and that is going to cause bronchodilation. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Epinephrine, adrenaline, adrenergic receptor. Okay? That's a really good key. So, which of these are going to be adrenergic and cholinergic? Tell me, adrenergic or cholinergic?
Cholinergic.
Cholinergic,
Adrenergic.
adrenergic, cholinergic, cholinergic. Okay. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. There are two subtypes of cholinergic receptors. There is
Nicotinic.
nicotinic
Nicotinic.
and
Muscarinic.
Muscarinic. I
muscarinic.
forgot to say that.
Muscarinic, okay? Nicotinic and muscarinic. And a lot of times, these are the ones that people get confused and forget and whatnot. But do you remember which one there are two subtypes of?
Nicotinic.
Nicotinic, there are two subtypes. What are they?
NN.
Nicotinic neural and nicotinic.
So there's N1, N2, and sometimes they're called NM and NN. And I memorize it this way just because I can remember it the other way. Because they're alphabetical. LMNOP, LMNOP, right? M1 to N. So 1M, 2N.
Oh, sure.
Make sense? Alphabetical. What does the M stand for? Muscle. N1 is only going to be found muscle. So that is not going to be on either the sympathetic or
Will
parasympathetic.
we see it later?
That, well,
I think
you've already
somatic.
talked about muscle. Neuromuscular junction.
Oh, yeah.
So in the neuromuscular junction, those are N1 receptors. Okay? N2, what does the N mean?
No.
Neuron or neural. So it's between neurons. Okay? So every time it's in between neurons, you're going to have N2. Okay? The difference between nicotinic and muscarinic, basic idea, nicotinic lets ions in, so you're going to have an action potential occurring, kind of like the neuromuscular junction. However, I don't need an action potential sort of on my pancreas when I'm trying to change something there. So it's a G protein. You don't need to know that specifically, but it helps you understand the difference between the two. Okay? So muscles, neurons, and this guy is going to be on the effector organs of the parasympathetic division, and the one thing in the sympathetic division that you need to memorize being the sweat glands.
So muscarinic is on organs
Yeah,
and effectors, and
Organs,
this one
glands.
on muscles and neurons.
muscles, neurons. Okay? Okay. Are these guys okay so far? Okay? So real quick, what is this receptor right here?
Muscarinic.
Muscarinic. Because it's not a neuron, it's not a muscle, and you know that acetylcholine is acting on it, so it's cholinergic, that means it's muscarinic. Okay?
But how do we know it's not a muscle though? Not the effector. What is it then?
So it does, well, real quick, parasympathetic. And muscle, that is specifically skeletal muscle, because
Oh,
smooth
okay.
muscle and cardiac muscle
Are on
are
their own.
going to be the muscarinic receptors.
This doesn't apply to them.
So this doesn't, okay, yeah, this is skeletal muscle, so I apologize, I didn't specify that,
Okay.
okay? So you're gonna have muscarinic or adrenergic receptors on the cardiac and smooth muscle.
Okay.
Okay. So the only place you're gonna see this is in the somatic pathways. Okay? Adrenergic, you talked about alpha and beta, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alpha and beta. 1, 2, 1, 2. There's alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you remember which ones are which? Which ones activate and which ones inhibit?
Well, it has to do with odd and even.
Odds and evens. I have an easier way for you, okay?
Okay, go for it.
Who likes dating?
Who likes what?
Dating.
Oh, I love it.
It's like, yeah.
Dating is great, okay? So when you see someone who is really attractive of the opposite sex, okay? You want to be able to date them, right? And if you're not single, pretend that you're single just for a moment, okay? So you really like dating, okay? If they are single, that is awesome, right? That's very excitatory. But if they already have a significant other, you see a wedding ring on, that's very inhibitory or no-go zone, right? You can't go after them, they're married. So it's like, oh man, so that's inhibitory. 1, okay? Single, excitatory. 2, there's 2 in that relationship already, no go.
Single.
Inhibitory, okay? However, it is good to remember the odds and evens way because technically, like there's a beta 3 receptor, there are things otherwise, or there are more numbers than 1 and 2. But if you can remember it for 1 and 2, you usually can continue that system of being like, okay, and then it
So it's
just
just the even ones are inhibitory and the
even ones, inhibitory, odd ones, excitatory. But for right now, you just have memorized 2, and if you can keep that principle throughout, then it's all right.
okay.